Ben Fagan here with another episode of Career Cash, the podcast. And on this episode, I sit down with community coordinator at South Florida Tech Hub and the host of the Mini Mike Minute, Nadia Volkova. On the episode, Nadia and I talk about everything under the sun, from her creative process to the importance of authentic storytelling and how she hopes to help people in the future. It's an awesome conversation. Let's get to it. Awesome.
It's your show.
Thank you. Well, as you said, it is my show, and it is my honor to have you on the show, Nadia. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Thanks for having me.
Of course, we can't get started right here. This mic has to go, right? Because we got to go. I have to find the smallest mic I can possibly find, right? The tiniest mic, the tiniest mic.
Actually?
This is sure. It's not plugged into anything right now, but it's symbolic. Okay. Do you want to tell us what this mini mic, if you will, some might call it, is symbolic of? What?
Where do I have it around here? I should have brought it, but oh my God, yes, thank you so much for bringing it up. That's hilarious. Can you show me the difference again, like the big one and the small one?
So we got lame big mic, boo, and then mini mic, woo.
That's so much better for real though.
Right. So talk to us a little bit about Mini Mike. We're jumping right into things today, and we're going to get into the meat and potatoes here. So tell me about Mini Mike. Tell me about how it started, what you're building there, because it's really awesome stuff.
Thank you. So my Mini Mike Minute, it's an initiative where I love interviewing people and same like you, but I do it street style. So and actually it's funny because you're doing it almost like street style. You're not asking me anything in advance, which I love. I appreciate that. It's more authentic. But yeah, that's my kind of theory, and how I live by is authenticity and honesty and just being yourself. And I just like approaching people on the streets, asking them random questions and seeing their reactions, and then doing like some of the post-production and then posting online and sharing with people, educating on different topics from all the way from politics to geography to like just social life in general. And I get some views and then just talk about it with people. Yeah.
That's awesome. So we like I said, we jumped right into things, with very little context about what's going on. So can you kind of give a little bit? We'll touch on Mini Mike and then some of the other stuff you're doing, because you're doing a whole lot of stuffs. And so was it just from the curiosity that drove you to doing this Mini Mike Minute? What kind of sparked this idea? How did this whole evolution come from? Because I think that's such an interesting topic when you have an idea and get it established like you have it, where it's like people can look at it and say like, oh, what a brilliant idea, like that just might have been such an easy thing to think about. What was that kind of creative process that you eventually arrived at what you have today? Walk me through that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so I always wanted to be a journalist growing up, but I never wanted to be like a TV anchor in traditional sense of it, because I thought that's very fake. It's very staged. You have all the cameras and people like touching you and doing whatever you need, the makeup. And I just wanted to be a journalist in a more honest way. And I just always had that draw for news, that draw for interviewing and people and stories. And I guess that's how I was like, oh my God, let me just have something very mobile, something quick, something on the spot, where I don't have to spend too much time on planning, on scheduling. Just for me, that was more of an efficient way of sharing my passion with people. And then it just happened to go really well. I got some good compliments and feedback, and I'm like, okay, let me just keep going. And then I secured like a real client, for real, that they started paying me for videos that I do. And I was like, okay, this is for real now. I have to make something even bigger. So I'm actually in the stage of like understanding where that goes. I'm not entirely sure. If I can just pop in here and say I'm looking for maybe a co-founder or whatever.
Please, yeah, shout out any co-founders out there.
If anyone is listening, yes, please reach out to me if you're interested in media and production and things like that.
No, that's awesome. So going back to a couple things here. Before I forget, I want to talk while it's fresh in the mind. You build it, you're getting the traction, and then you're like, okay, somebody's willing to pay you to do this thing. What was that like, where you're like, oh dang, like what a cool thing? Like how'd you feel? What was that thought process like?
So actually I really do not want to be an influencer. I don't want to have a lot of like followers. That's not my goal, because I really don't want to be out and about for the entire world. I really don't. But I still want to be able to make money, or like side money or whatever, with the passion that I have. And it's very interesting, because the way content works is, for you to really make big, six figures, you really need a lot of followers. Like, it's just the way to go. But that requires so much energy and effort, like every day of content, that just like, it's not me. I cannot just do random content. I really need to do something that I want to create, so I realized, okay, let me just change that approach. Instead of going the influencer route, let me just go somewhere else. So this is what I created. Essentially, my target audience is like nonprofits and startups that are currently, they need to vouch their idea. They need to confirm with the people that their services or product is needed. Essentially, so they have, for example, a question: does my app work for the people? They give me the questions, and I have them, and I go to the people and ask them, essentially, like, do you need this? What is your problem with it? And then they tell me realistically that it's almost like product validation. It's almost, and a review, right? That you want to collect like authentic feedback from the people about it. And so when people vouch it and confirm and validate the need, I give it back to the startup, give it back to the nonprofit, and essentially they create content with it and then use it in whatever they have, slideshows or pitches, and to investors, and to show, okay, this is needed. And I mean, I literally get to do that for some cash prize.
Yeah. No, that's
So it's yep.
That's awesome. And you keep mentioning the word, authenticity and authentic, and what's so abundant. If for those of you, we'll have all the information for people to check out, and all the descriptions below, that good stuff, to see all the, the mini mic minutes and all the cool interviews and work that you're doing and social media and all that stuff. But it's abundantly clear that from you as the interviewer, you're so genuine, you're so authentic in how you approach it. And I think that that's what creates such a cool product and makes it so fun. And so why is it important to you to be so authentic and do it in the style that makes sense for you? Because like you said, there's pressure, especially in kind of the universe that you're operating in with social media and TikTok and Instagram and stuff, to kind of do it in certain styles. So how do you balance everything that's surrounding, taking what works, leaving what doesn't, but still ultimately remaining genuine and authentic to yourself as you go through this process?
Oh my gosh, I love that question, because I think about it a lot. I think about it a lot. So yeah, to be in the content space, you really need to watch content, a lot of it, and to understand where are the trends, and what people are into. And then it's almost like watching content for me is part of the job for me, for real. And the way I go about it is, well, first of all, there's a skill. Interviewing is a skill, right? And for me, I want to become better at it, only better and better. And obviously practice makes perfect, right? And I was thinking about it recently. What is my goal with interviewing? What is my goal with public speaking? How do I master it? How do I become better? Whatever, right? And I thought, well, I should totally try improv class. I don't know if I told you, Ben. I was like, I need to try improv classes. Have you heard from me
Yeah,
about it?
yeah.
No?
No, I haven't heard from you. I'm familiar with improv, but
Oh,
not
okay, yeah,
familiar with your relationship with
yeah,
improv. So do tell.
yeah. So yeah, I was like thinking, I should try improv classes. And that's how I can practice,
Mhm.
into responding on the spot and having that quick reaction and talking to people. So I guess, like, thinking, for me, the authenticity comes from, like, just being, I guess, just being genuine and true to myself, but also getting better. I guess for me, um I always want to have a goal with something. And with this, it's also just a goal of interviewing. I guess that's how, when I see, okay, where I can learn more about it and where I can practice it more. But at the end of the day, with the things I do, it's a lot of, you you go, 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 you do it in the moment. And yeah, I guess it's impossible also to be not genuine in interviews. Like, you show yourself, right? I feel like it's so impossible.
Hmm. No, I agree. And I think what's cool about the stuff that you do, and again, this is kind of what it sounded like you were getting at too, is because your stuff, the style in which you do it, even like the hiccups, the mistakes, the awkwardness, like you make the most of it and you make it a part of it, because that's a real interaction where there's the awkward silence, or like the
Mhm.
somebody's thinking or fumbles over the words, and you have fun with it, which I think is so cool. And to your point, very not, news anchory, which makes sense why you're, in this world now. And to kind of give a little bit further context, because again, we're just peeling back the layers here. There's so much to dive into. But to give context to mine and Nadia's relationship, she was a student at Lynn when I was working there, came in, I got the great opportunity of being her mentor as she was going through the Watson program. And what was so, and we talked probably a few weeks ago, long overdue meetup, which was good and important. But what we were talking about this, and it was something that really was, resonated with me, was, as you were going through, school and kind of growing, it, like, first of all, it happened like that, which was insane. And then the thing that you mentioned to
Right?
me, where you said, like, on the first meeting, what was the concern that you had?
Yeah, literally. So it's just a mentality, such a growth mentality and
Mhm.
mindset now. But yeah, when I just met Ben at the first meeting, I remember I said, I'm afraid of being boring or whatever. Did I say that or
Yeah,
something?
yeah, you
Afraid
said
of,
you said that it was something like that.
oh my gosh. Yeah, and such a it's such a like I can just feel how I grew from that mentality and how different I am now in a sense of being boring. What does that even mean? You're always like interesting. You're always like, there. It's enough to be just there, right? You don't have to like think you're expected of something. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what was that transition? Was there, some experiences that you were going through? What was that growth process like, to where it's like, hey, like, me just being here is cool enough, and then now you can begin to really embrace. And from my perspective, that was the coolest thing, of just like, yeah, I'm always here, I got your back, but let you go do your thing, which was, awesome. And you've done your thing, we'll continue to do it. But what was that process from getting from that mindset of like, oh man, like, I hope I'm not boring, or to this, to kind of like almost timid, to like, no, let's let it rock, let me go interview strangers, let alone people I know. So how did you make that transition?
Yeah, for sure. I think a big part is it's the cliche part of
Mhm.
being comfortable and uncomfortable.
Right.
And I think that going through different activities and experiencing life in the US and moving here and then just being by myself, I think that just definitely brought the best out of me and making me feel comfortable. And I have a lot to offer. Meeting people in the US, I was like, oh my God, I'm actually not that bad. Not to say anything bad about, but just in general, like, meeting new people and just talking and seeing what I can offer, seeing results from my actions, I think that's what brought me to the conclusion and just the growth. But question, I'm just so curious, how was your reaction? What did you think when I said that?
Well,
Like,
yeah, because I just remember, it was just, I'm trying to think, because when you had when you had said that, like, when you said it to me like a couple weeks ago, it rang the bell. Like, I remember, similar conversation. But it's interesting, and this is like where I was kind of, trying to piece together what I was thinking, was like, I could not in a million years picture you saying something like that now, in terms of how you operate now, which to me is so cool, as somebody who's in the, quote unquote mentor role, give, for whatever that means. But to see you saying, like, that's why the mini mic minutes, among all the other things that you do, is just such a strong illustration for everything. Is just like going out there, taking the world by storm, traveling, bouncing around different places, all these things, building these things. That, because I remember you coming in, and part of, what you wanted to do, accomplish, that kind of mission that you had with Watson, and the big focus was to do something in the media space. And
mhm.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember the early conversations, from what you wanted to do to what you do now, is in many ways very, very different, if not totally different, but similar in the sense that you're still in the media space. but I remember it
Mhm.
was something along the lines of like messaging on like public transport, transportation, and
Right.
stuff. If my memory does serve me, but
Yeah, yeah.
so I think that's an interesting place to kind of talk from. So can you share a little bit about that process of coming in with this idea, and share just for context a little bit about what Watson is for people who aren't familiar, what your mission originally was and how it evolved into more of the things that you're doing today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A little plug for my Watson people and my favorite Watson community at Lynn. Actually, fun fact, I don't know if you know, but Watson is so much more than Lynn. It has so much more programs around the country and even the world. They're a little bit based in China, a little bit in Guatemala, I think, if I'm not wrong, or somewhere in the Caribbean too. But yeah, no, Watson is a really cool community of entrepreneurs and people that are really willing to take that risk and take the leap of faith, how we like to say it. And we love to protect each other's courage. That's also another cliche, but it's really meant. Um, so yeah, I was part of the degree, the social entrepreneurship degree at Lynn University, and I got it within 3 years. It's an accelerator like degree program. And my mission, so we would like to say that people have their mission areas, which means they literally major in what they're passionate about, right? And what that means is that a lot of students have their own interests, which can be like eco-friendly, can be climate change, it can be social justice, it can be all the different positive changes that need to happen in the world. And people have their own projects or ventures that lie within that niche, and then they work on it throughout their degree or program at Watson. And personally, for me, I was always curious to do something in the storytelling um like sphere, but I wasn't exactly sure what exactly I want to do with that. So yeah, I tried different approaches. I remember I showed you even something I did with a diary. I was prototyping culture diary about stories from around the world, and I was creating um like a journal. Basically, I designed a journal where people can write their thoughts about traveling, and I was thinking about prototyping something like that. Do you remember
Oh,
at
of
all?
course, yeah, yeah. I remember at the different stages.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. That was fun. Yeah, now it's been my mission has been, I guess, helping startups validate their products through storytelling and interviews.
No, I love that. And it's always so interesting to see how the creative evolution comes, from, and it's interesting to not even like reflecting on, my own stuff and stuff that you're doing or people that I see, friends that I have, of not being like, oh man, that was so dumb, why did I do that or this, that, the other, or but embracing all of the, the journey, because it leads you to, these different projects, and to see, one product evolved into the next, I think is really really so cool. And so now looking at the work that you do, how your mission has kind of shifted, why is it important to you to work with startups, to work with nonprofits, and to help tell their stories?
Yeah, I mean, it's just happened to be startups and nonprofits. But essentially my whole idea is, I guess, to speak the truth of the people, and that happens to be helping certain companies or products, right? It's not necessarily that I am trying, it just happens naturally. That's the whole idea of it. But I mean, I just love working with entrepreneurs, so and people that are willing to go out of their way and to, so I guess like it's both. I like just normal people on the street that don't like think twice about their actions, because I'm not necessarily trying to get something out of them on purpose, right? I'm not trying to sell something to them or be like, enforce them into something. It just happens naturally more than that. And it's working. I just hope that I really want to see more results too, because at the end of the day, it has to be result driven for me.
And so,
Yeah.
so how do you balance that of doing the work that's important to you and then being patient for the results, or waiting for the results? How do you balance that and keep your head level and in a good place?
Yeah, it's interesting. So in a lot of the work, you don't see like you cannot compliment if it's not a result,
Mhm,
right? You cannot just say, wow, that's cool until it's done,
mhm,
right? So with whatever, for example, I'm also in the event planning space, and actually I was thinking about this today. You can, if you, for example, if you're a designer, you make a graphic, you make it and it's pretty, you can say, oh my god, that's a pretty graphic, like you see the result. But if you're in the partnership side, you, for example, you made a partnership with a company on something, you won't necessarily say beautiful. I mean, you will say yes, good partnership, but it's not very obvious. It's not going to
mhm,
be like a graphic. It's not so visual.
mhm.
And because it's not visual, it's very easy to underestimate it. Um, in a way, okay, obviously if it brings money, yes, that's a result. You can come, like you can say, okay, it brought money, it's giving revenue, it's giving profit, yes. But still, it's not as easy to complement it in a sense of it's a result, if that makes sense. Does it? I mean,
Yeah,
does
so
it
so it's
really?
it's kind of it's kind of like you're almost like underestimating, or like either not necessarily intentionally devaluing, but I think underestimating is a better way to kind of go about it, like the process, or the work that it kind
Uh,
of takes to get there. Because again, to your point is like, yeah, you can say, in that partnership or that merger or the this, that, the other, where yeah, anybody that's looking to partner with Nadia, shout out. Right. We're trying to always plug that. But with whatever partnership, like to the, going on the example that you gave, was that, if that doubles the business sales, or like in 10 years that was like a pivotal piece in the business history, then you can look back and say, like you said, oh, awesome partnership. But like
yeah,
in
yeah.
the moment, you may not be able to see it. And so yeah, to your point, it's a less tangible thing. And I think you're it's easy to, well, it sounds like this is what you're getting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is it like it's
Um,
easy to overestimate or almost devalue like the process if you don't see the, or like until you see the results? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
uh, yeah, 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 exactly. Um, like same thing with I do before one interview video comes to be,
Mm,
there's so much that takes, right? And a lot of the times I will interview, for example, 10 people on the streets, but only three will end up in the video for
mhm.
real. And it just takes up so much effort in realizing, damn, half of the work that I do is actually not useful at all. Like,
Yeah.
um, so realizing that is tough, but yeah, you gotta balance that and just, it has to come with it. It has to, like, you win some, you lose some, it's that.
So because coming from the video space, that's something that I live with all the time, of filming hours and hours and hours for a 30-second video, and you're like, ah, dang it.
Right?
Uh, and so can you kind of explain and expand a little bit on that, like from the creator's perspective as you're going through this, like why do you pick and choose, or what's your approach to that, and why do, if you're interviewing 10, if you're only going to use three, why not just interview three people? So why is it
Right?
important to get more than you need? So what is your creative approach to that?
No, 100%. It's also actually, that's where I debate about it as well, of like, how do you charge people for the extra time you do that actually like doesn't even go in the results? Like,
Hmm.
it's always the debate of also how do you like how do you find yourself value, but also don't overcharge and not undercharge? It's like it's a whole dilemma. I feel you. And how I also see the fact that when um so for example, I have like 10,000 like hours of footage, right? Whatever. But I only use like 3,000.
Hmm.
Um and it's interesting because the way it comes out in after, you can navigate it and make it into a funny video or a sad. And
Hmm.
literally it's the same thing, but it's just a matter of post-production. Like it's literally just this noises or the like transitions that make the video a story. And it's so weird seeing how my creativity or my thought process can change the whole story of a video. And that's why I also think, I guess it's easier for me doing video camera things than public speaking. I have no idea how you do public speaking, Ben. That's like a totally different thing for me, because public speaking, you literally cannot edit anything. Like you're live, you know. But in post-production or in content, that's what I love about it. I can make it how I want it. So I
Mhm.
can change it, I can like, cut it up, I can make it a funny or a sad video, like whatever. It's up to me.
So with that too, that brings up a very interesting point: is how do you balance telling their genuine story with your creativity and how you kind of want to tell it? Because that's interesting. Because I'll do the same thing with the videos too. Is like, and I tell that to people all the time. Is like, if you look at it, the best example I give is if you watch a horror movie, like a scary movie with no soundtrack, it's significantly less scary with no like wood floors creaking, doors opening, like ominous music. It's just like people walking around a dark room, right? The music and the transitions, to your point, makes so much of it. So how do you balance telling the story in a genuine way, their authentic story, with your creativity and your creative freedom, which should also be embraced? How do you balance that?
No, for sure. I love that you understand me, because it's definitely part of the process of making the video. You have to add on like effects, add on, which makes it, also a thing to debate on. Is it actually authentic, or is it made up because you edited it and made it funny? Was it originally funny? We never know. You don't know.
Right, right.
It might not be originally funny at all. So I definitely get that. And uh, you just have to believe me.
Yeah.
There's no, I don't know.
No,
Just believe me.
I think that's good, and I think an important thing too, especially for people in the creative space too. And this is something that I constantly think about, especially with the videos. And to going back to your point about, like how I go about the public speaking stuff is, I love the fact that you can't edit it, because that gives me some level of
Mm.
freedom to where it's like, okay, I go in, I stumble over this, I stumble over that. The idea, my job and responsibility is, just keep going, just let it rip. There is no editing. Whereas a lot of times with video in the creative space, you can get it's like the paralysis by analysis. Like there's so many choices that you can go with. Should I make it funny, should I
Oh,
not, should I this, should I that? And
yeah.
there's like just that abundance of choices to where it's like almost difficult to see what direction you want to go in.
Oh,
And so like, I don't know how you navigate that, or do you, when you go into these things, do you have that vision? And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to like, hey, was it funny, was it not, did I make it funny? Because that's still part of the creative process, and we don't want to like, suffocate that. But that's such an interesting thing that you bring up, that kind of dichotomy between, the no editing with like, the public speaking or the live stuff, because the interviewing stuff that you do is definitely public speaking, it's just in a different environment, but then you
mm.
have the editing thing. So that's, well, what's your hot take on that? Just the general, the ability to, kind of edit, in that paralysis by analysis feeling of when there's so many choices, how do you just pick one?
Wow, no, that's a whole philosophical topic, because liberation comes from restrictions,
Mm.
which is very controversial. How does that even meant to be? If you're restricting yourself, like you're suffocating, but at the end of the day, actually restrictions make you more free, which it comes to place with with your public speaking. You're like, okay, this is how I am, this is the context, I have to run with it, period, like nothing else. With all of the freedom of choice, with all of the different scenarios you can choose in post-production, it just gives you like, oh my God, do I do this? Do I do that? Like you have to constantly edit and choose and make it, how you want. It comes with time and effort, right? So I love how you said, it's more liberating, which is ironic. How is it more, right? It's same with like any discipline. When you're self-disciplined, you actually feel so much more free, because you respect yourself to commit to something every single day, which means like you are worth it. But to some people it's going to be like, oh my god, you have such a boring life because you do everything like you every day you do the same thing. But it's not necessarily true, right? You're just committing to yourself.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. And the folks at home, you didn't know we'd be swimming in the deep end, getting all deep philosophically here, did you? And that was your first mistake. But to that point, and we're gonna stay in the deep end for a quick second here, is excuse me, another kind of philosophical type thing that I really like is that idea of, if your whole life, because people are like, oh man, who wants to go through bad times, or who wants to struggle, who wants to this, that, the other, have, fail a test, or have a video flop, all these, nobody wants that. But if you never had those things, then you'd be living life on this, flat, kind of plateau. And you wouldn't be sad, but you also wouldn't be happy because you would have nothing to be happy about. There'd be no comparison. And so in other words, you need the downs to appreciate the highs and stuff. And so that's super interesting that you say that whole concept around, like, it's actually, the constrictions are actually freeing, because it gives you that the bounds in which to work. Or if you have no bounds, if you kind of more from an entrepreneurial point of view, it's like, hey, you can do whatever, you build your own schedule, all of that thing. Well, to be successful in doing that, you have to set some boundaries, you have to set some kind of routine there to do that. And so just popped into my head, I said, I'm enjoying the deep end of the pool, let's stay here for a little bit. But I think that there's so much commonality between those different thoughts. And again, ultimately it's the same idea, but said in different ways and kind of looked at in different lights.
You just gave me an idea, because that's the reason why, and nothing bad with that, but that's the reason why most people do corporate jobs. It's because it's stable. It's because you just know you're coming at 9, you're leaving at 5. It's safety, it's security. Nothing wrong with that. Currently I'm in that position almost kind of, so not my goal, but yes, I mean that's why most people choose it, because of security, right? Which is why, I mean, you're restricted from 9 to 5, you're restricted. That's your life. Um, and totally, I mean, especially for people with families, that's how you can take care of your kids. You just shut off from work and you go to your kids, you balance your, life with work. And that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Right?
No, definitely. And you nailed it there. It's ultimately about figuring out what works for you. So if that's something that helps you operate in at whatever stage of life you're in, checks the boxes for you, then by all means, it's not the 9 to 5 is right or wrong, the not 9 to 5 is right or wrong, the 7 to 3, whatever it is that fits for you. And so, like you mentioned, you're kind of in that space right now, that 9 to 5 ish space. So talk a little bit
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
again, there's so much to touch on. We haven't even gotten here yet, and we're already this far in. What do you do? What do you do on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis?
Oh my gosh, now I want to do a plug for Software Tech Hub.
Give it to us.
um I am a community coordinator, and I work with alongside a small team. We have a team of 4 or 5 people, and we serve a community of 10,000 people, which is why we're busy. And yeah, I do event planning as well. And yeah, we have a hackathon soon coming up at City Furniture, which is really cool. We're gonna have hackers 24 hours hacking their projects, and we're gonna have cash prizes, and we're gonna have a lot of like cool giveaways. And yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm excited. I honestly love my job. Like, we have really good events, and the best part is that yes, it's like 9 to 5, but I really still choose my schedule. Like right now, I get to like do a podcast with you, even though it's like 3 p.m., So I really enjoy that. And it's remote most of the time, but we get to like meet each other at events, which I really enjoy. Something I guess what I took away is um like it humbles you. It humbles you to see all the people around you, and just being connected. I guess that's what I enjoy the most is feeling connected to people, and through events and through different um like I don't even know, like conferences, I get to feel that. So yeah.
No, I love that. I love that. And that's the beautiful thing about, what you have going on is, you even said, hey, this is, is this what I ultimately want to do forever and ever and ever? I know you're always building bigger and badder, in your head, which is awesome, but you're really embracing where you are right now, which I think is such an important thing to do and a difficult thing to do. To embrace where you are right now. And I try to take, heavy doses of my own medicine, and do the best I can to practice what I preach. And don't always succeed, but we try, and that's what matters the most. So kind of, looking forward here, and I know this is always the loaded question. What are some of those things that you're building towards, that you're hoping to accomplish, that, the kind of one thing that I know is, important to you is impact. What kind of impact are you looking to continue to have and build, as you move forward in your professional journey?
I am also part of this community called Venture for America, and they have the credos. Have you heard of the term credo?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So they have core credos that they live by, the whole community, like people. One of them is you create opportunity for yourself and others. And the thing is, when you create opportunities for others, you automatically create them for yourself. And I think that's what I've learned the most from Watson for Venture for America, from South Florida Tech Hub, or whatever it takes me. I notice whenever I open up a door for someone, or like I just share knowledge or insight, like it really helps me in the long run, regardless of, do I see it right away or not. So I think that's how I really hope to make impact, is by opening opportunities for myself and others wherever it takes me. And I think that's how I feel valuable.
A beautiful thing. And you've done it already. You're going to continue to do it. And before we wrap up here, and we've gone all over the place, which has been a lot of fun. And there's still, again, just scratching the surface here. We could be on for, hours and hours on end. But before we go, it's time to cash out. So this is where you leave us with your most valuable piece of advice. The pressure's on, right? So tell us your biggest lesson learned, most valuable piece of advice to give us a little extra money for the road. So what do you have for us today?
All right, I'm cashing out with one piece of advice of um okay, so don't think other people's problems are necessarily your problems. And what I mean by that is, yes, you can be empathetic and sympathize with people, but don't feel the need to think to take on that problem and solve it, or, relate to it in a sense. So that's my piece of advice. I just stumbled upon it recently while looking for roommates, right? And I feel very guilty when I'm like, well, this would have been a really great roommate, right? But and they're also looking for a room and I'm also looking, but for example, something didn't work out and now I feel bad. But at the end of the day, it's not my problem. Like, we were clear initially. So I guess, that's my piece of advice in life. Just don't take other people's problems as your problems.
I love it. I love it. So always food for thought, good things. And the fact of the matter is we had a lot of cash coming in and out throughout this whole episode. So Nadia, I can't thank you enough. You're making me proud as the mentor role. You make me proud as a friend. And I'm excited to see all the things that you're going to continue to accomplish. So thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it.